What is going on, everybody? Welcome to another brand new episode of Everything Collegiate. I am Ben Shepard, your host, as we have another week of college football to talk about. Another, top to bottom Saturday slate that was all right. Yeah, there was nothing as good as some of the best games last week, but, there were good football games. Yeah, good football games. We're going to go to a lot of places. We're going to go talk about Michigan, Nebraska. We got to talk about Oklahoma, Auburn, which probably was my favorite game of the weekend. We can talk about how bad Florida is. I have no problem and enjoy doing that on a regular basis. But we got to start in Bloomington, Indiana. The Hoosiers from the Hoosier State. Holy Signetti. As the coach said himself, he just wins. Google him. Illinois is a good top 25 quality team. They've already gotten a blowout win on the road against Duke, but they were no match for the Hoosiers. Oh my goodness. On the day, it was just ugly with a capital O. Ugly. Oogly. As, Orlando Cabrera used to say. Fernando Mendoza is a name a lot more people need to be talking about. After a solid season last year at Cal, Mendoza was one of the most sought-after transfer quarterbacks available on the market in the portal. He brought into this Hoosier he was brought in, but he did buy in to this Hoosier program. And they look like legit playoff contenders again. They're going to do it again. There's only one stat that I need to really point out in this game. It'll explain how 63-10 arguably doesn't do justice for how dominant Indiana was on Saturday night. Indiana gained a total of 300, 100, 200, 12 yards on the ground. Illinois gained a total of 2. 12-2. Now, in reality, when you don't include the 7 times Luke Altmaier was sacked, they ran for 49 total yards at 3.8 a clip. But my God, this Indiana defense made some kind of statement, man. I'll come back to Illinois in a second and where they go, where the Illini go from here. But this Indiana team has a tough slate in front of them. Unlike last season, Indiana at 10-2, it'd be helped to be better, but Indiana at 10-2 with this win on their resume might well get in. They already have a win against Old Dominion, who looked like the best team in the Sun Belt Conference early on this year. Now they've butchered Illinois. Their next 2 games are road tests against Iowa and Oregon with a bye week in the middle. Honestly, we'll be sitting here on November 8th as they get ready to travel to Penn State. And as long as Indiana is 8-1 at the time, I'm assuming they split in the Iowa-Oregon games. Beat one on the road, lose to the other on the road. I have my preferences of who they'd lose to, Oregon. But you never know, right? I think they're probably good for a split in those games. Those are 2 tough road games. One significantly tougher than the other. Sorry, Hawkeyes. But those are not, cakewalks for either Oregon or Iowa. Iowa's probably going to be the dog in that game. I think that's next week. But if they're 8-1 and they don't get, if they're 10-2 at the end of the year and they haven't been blown out in either of those losses, they're probably in with this type of win over Illinois. I can't remember a top 25 team. And again, do not let the score fool you. Illinois is a top 25 caliber team, and I believe they still should show up in the AP poll, which shouldn't exist yet, by the way. Again, I'm going to create my first AP poll on the Thursday show when we preview, because I think after week 4 is where you're allowed to make your first poll. I'm going to make my I'm going to give you my top 10 today. I'm going to do the full top 25 for Ben's give me an AP vote poll. Illinois is a top 25 caliber team that got blasted on both lines. The Indiana offensive line was stellar, as was the D-line. And that's how you build a champion. And if the star-crossed duo of Mendoza and all Big Ten second-team receiver last season, Elijah Surratt, keep at their pace, this team will make noise in December for inclusion once again. Now, for Illinois, why did I add the S there? For Illinois, I'm not going to sugarcoat this. This is bad. You can't lose by 53 to anybody and it can be considered a good thing. This was an embarrassing performance that will resonate the rest of the season. But now it's gut check time. USC comes through Champaign next week. A win there will reestablish some semblance of momentum. But now, to be a playoff team, they'll need to upset not just USC, but they'll need to upset Ohio State on October 11th as well. It's time for head coach Brett Bielema and the team leaders like Altmaier to get their men in line and refocused. Do not let Indiana beat you twice. This loss could beat you a second time. Refocus, come back, take care of business against USC next week. Doable. The other big, I'm not going to call it an upset. I didn't pick, I thought Illinois was, full transparency, I thought Illinois was going to beat Indiana. I was wrong. I thought Utah was going to beat Texas Tech. I was wrong. Now, we got to talk about what happened in Utah. The Texas Tech Red Raiders. Man, they played their backsides off. This team was really good. As the season kicks off into high gear, we will continue to learn which teams are good and which teams are actual contenders. There is a big difference. Next week, we find out a lot about Oregon and Penn State for the first time. Are they good? We know they're good. Are they contenders? We don't know that yet. I think I do, but we don't. Ohio State, that dog outside, if you guys can hear that, that is the most annoying. It's been going all day. I don't know if it's not being fed or what, but I want to punt it across the state right now. It barks like a small dog too, and I just hate small dogs. If you can't horseplay with a dog, it's not a dog, it's a cat at that point. I digress. But way too early on Saturday, it kicked off 10 a.m. local time. Fox, you suck. You really suck. It's fine if you want to do your campus game at Utah, Texas Tech. Your pregame show does not need to lead into the game. You could have scheduled this game to tip off at 3:30 Eastern, and it would have made no difference. You still could have gone to Utah, Texas Tech. You guys are really annoying at this. On top of adding Dave Portnoy, but that's neither here nor there. The Texas Tech Red Raiders established themselves Saturday as the singular favorites to win the Big 12 this season. Texas Tech, for those not constantly in the college sports ecosystem like myself, are this season's Ohio State Buckeyes. Let me explain. They're not the Buckeyes in terms of having overwhelming talent on their roster. They don't. But as the team who spent more on the transfer portal than any other team in the country, it's not Texas or Georgia or Alabama. It's the Texas Tech Red Raiders that fit that bill. They spent $33 million or something like that. Right? Up to this point, I haven't had the Red Raiders on the same level as the top teams from other conferences. We knew that Texas Tech would compete for the Big 12 this year. The Big 12 is going to be real chaotic again this year. I think only one team gets out of it into the playoff, and there are, I would say, 5 teams in it that are at worst good. Maybe even more, if you want to count Kansas, which I don't quite yet. They're close to making that argument that they're as good as anybody in the country, And they, right now, as I sit here today, are certainly the class of the Big 12. The Red Raider defense totally dominated Devin Dampier and the Ute offense. There was a scary moment in the second quarter when Tech's quarterback Baron Morton went down with a head or neck injury, but redshirt freshman backup Will Hammond came into the game and spun it with the amount of freedom that only a backup can have. Texas Tech scored 24 fourth-quarter points as they just wore the Utah defense down over time and then picked at the carcass that was left lying there in the fourth quarter. Dampier and Utah, I think, are going to bounce back, right? They're well coached under Whittingham. They're not dead, all right, like Kansas State. That's not what this team is. They're still a quality team. I'm not sure that the prediction I made in the second quarter of that game, that these two teams will meet again in the Big 12 title game, will hold true, but they are two quality teams. My game of the week, really quickly, because it was a great game, but there's really nothing to talk about in it, was Oklahoma and Auburn. The Sooners knocked off the Auburn Tigers 24-17 in a clash of SEC kind of up-and-comers. I want to just right now, both of these teams, Oklahoma and Auburn, legit quality. They are both quality teams. Auburn quarterback Jackson Arnold played exceptionally well in his return to Norman. Eric Singleton had his first breakout performance for the Tigers since transferring in from Georgia Tech, and the Auburn defense again confirmed the quality it flashed against Baylor back on week 1. Auburn is a good team. I'm not sure if they will, but they're still one of the 25 best teams in the country. But this Oklahoma Sooner team is good and damn good. I'll say damn good. They basically get 2 bye weeks now. An actual bye week, and then Kent State, who's a pseudo bye week, before they roll into Dallas on October 11th for the Red River rivalry. That is going to be a fun, capital F-U-N, fun game. Oklahoma, Texas, I am ready for. John Mateer, again, showed that even when he doesn't light up the world, he can have a systematically solid performance and his team will win the game. Right? Arkansas transfer Isaiah Satenga III was unguardable for the Sooners out wide all day. And the defense, again, as is the case with most Brett Venables teams, is on the edge of elitism. I don't think they're quite at that Ohio State, LSU, maybe Miami level of defense, but they're close. Again, Auburn's going to have a chance. Again, AP voters might drop Auburn out of the top 25. They're still a top 25 team. They will be in. I'd be shocked if they're not in mine on Thursday. I haven't prepped it yet, but I'm sure they will be. And with their next 3 being A&M, Georgia, and Mizzou, they got a chance to really bounce back into the national conversation by going 2-1 in those 3. Another game that we got to talk about, Michigan going into Lincoln and beating the Nebraska Cornhuskers 30-27. It was really not that close. It was a 30-20 game with a garbage time Nebraska touchdown, making it a little closer with 1:10 to go. Real quick, starting with the Cornhuskers, there are facets of Dylan Raiola's game that are starting to impress, and he's starting to look like a solid quarterback prospect. Yes, he's still cosplaying as Patrick Mahomes. Yes, it's still hilarious. Yes, we should still continue to make fun of him for it. He played really well. 30 of 41 for over 300 yards, 3 scores, and 1 pick that was a tip ball. He played really well. I would argue it's his first borderline great college performance. But these are the types of games where coming in second isn't enough. In order for Nebraska to really be back, if you couldn't hear the air quotes there, air quotes, back, they've got to start knocking off teams when they come to Memorial Stadium. As I mentioned, Raiola looked good, but he held onto the ball a bit too long. The Cornhusker O-line was butchered by this Michigan defense. 7 sacks. Raiola kept getting hit. Yeah, he was holding on to the ball a bit. Yeah, coverage did some of those sacks. But this O-line did not look good. And as far as the Michigan offense, Bryce Underwood, continues to look solid. They aren't asking him to do too much in terms of an aerial attack. He's not a good passer yet. But he looks improved in his decision-making in terms of when to tuck it, when to throw it away, and kind of play for the next play. But the story of this game were big plays, and specifically Jamal Haynes. The Alabama transfer exploded for 149 yards on 17 carries, including a massive 75-yard a 75-yard touchdown run. Underwood and Marshall continued to make solid runs as well. And I want to highlight a player. I normally don't highlight O-linemen, but senior center Greg Crippen. I had to check the roster on that one. This center, look out for Michigan center Greg Crippen if your team needs an interior lineman in this NFL draft. Go back and watch even the highlights. You don't need the full game film. Watch the highlights of Michigan, Nebraska. Every single one of these big runs, Crippen makes the exact same block. He blocks, he's in the center, he blocks left side A-gap, chipping off the D end, or the D lineman, and then filtering over to the second level to clip the middle linebacker the other way, basically like Moses parting the ocean of the defense to leave a wide open lane in the middle. He did that on every single one of these runs. It's one of the best individual games I've seen from a center in the college football in a long time. All that being said, for Michigan, I think the story remains pretty much unchanged. They're better than they were last year, significantly, I'd argue. The defense is slightly worse against the pass than they were last year, and that could haunt them later in the year. They travel to USC and host Washington back-to-back. Now, I think USC is better than Washington, but those are two teams that can put points on the board. Those are going to be tests for the Wolverines. The Cornhuskers, on the other hand, they just need that one win. They need that one win against a team that's significantly better than them to get to that next level. I think they have the weapons, they have the quarterback, but they just need to tackle better and not give up so many big plays. And then, you know what? I think, again, I know it's tough for Cornhusker fans. You got to be patient. Matt Rule is clearly improving this program. Let him keep his guys one more year. I think next year Nebraska might finally be able to take that next step. The last game I want to dive into was the College Game Day game, the Miami Hurricanes and the Florida Gators. Miami pummeled the Gators 26-7 down at Hard Rock Stadium. There's nothing to say about Miami on this one. I had them ranked as my best team in the country going into this game. Spoiler alert, in my top 10, they're still ranked number 1. Let's go, Florida. Hey, if you're involved with the Florida Gator football program, just tune in real quick here. Trigger warning, if you might be upset by stuff, this is going to be it. Lagway Mania is done. The Gators have little to no offense to speak of. And to be honest, I'm ashamed of them. Shame is the emotion I feel and felt last night when I watched that game. They didn't even try to beat the Miami Hurricanes. What happened to going out on your shield? You might lose. You might lose the game. Everybody loses games. Losing games, as much as we talk about it, it's not the end of the world. People lose every day. Look at what happened in the Purdue-Notre Dame game. Purdue lost 56-30. Wasn't a blowout at halftime, but they kept trying on offense to do things. They kept trying to take it to the Fighting Irish. So the Fighting Irish kept getting the ball back and poured 56 points on them in 3 quarters. Sometimes that happens. Michigan State, USC in the nightcap. Michigan State, they kept giving up points to Jordan Mayava. They put up a fight. They scored 31 on USC. They gave up 45, but they tried. Florida didn't do squat. Billy Napier and his staff clearly went into this game trying not to be embarrassed. They didn't play to win. They didn't even play to lose. They played to not lose badly. On paper, scoreline 26-7, 13-7 entering the fourth quarter. It's not an embarrassing number. If you just look at the stats, or not even the stats, because I'll get into that in a second. If you just look at the box score, it's not an embarrassing loss for Florida. It's not terrible. They gave up points in the fourth quarter to the best team in the country. Nothing wrong with that on paper. But if you watched the game, it's bad. Florida averaged 5.1 yards per pass completion. That stat includes yards after the catch. 12 pass completions for 61 yards. Oh, you cowards. You cowards. DJ Lagway has one horrid game, and all of a sudden, I thought you guys were gators, alligators. You're not. You're the Florida Turtles. You crawled up in your shell. That's all you did. The entire game plan was to protect the ego of DJ Lagway. We're going to keep extra blockers in every single play to keep him upright. We're not even going to have him look downfield. He's going to play conservative, safe, and we're not going to win, but we're not going to get embarrassed 40-7 like we did last year or whatever the scoreline was. That's why you haven't had any more than one winning season since COVID. Honestly, I'd fire Napier today. I'm sick of this dude. I don't care how well he's recruiting. I don't care. It's been proven every coach in the country can recruit. I don't care if Lagway says he'll leave if Napier does. Let him walk. This team doesn't need a roster overhaul. They have talent at every position on the field. They have more talent than half the teams in their conference do. The Florida Gators need a culture overhaul. Florida Gator football. I'm talking administration, coaching, players, fans. Florida Gator football needs to stop acting like they know what they're doing. The Gators need to realize that teams like Missouri, Auburn, and even Vanderbilt are better than them. Not only on the field at playing football, but off the field at doing football. And doing football culture. Florida is, if you're a recruit today and you had a serious look in the mirror and you had to pick between Florida and Missouri, you ain't going to Florida. Pick between Florida and Auburn? Look at what Cam Coleman's doing down at Auburn. You ain't going to Florida. Hell, I mean, we need to see them do it without Diego Pavia, but you'd have a conversation before turning your nose up at Vanderbilt. Once they change their culture, maybe they'll be able to get some sustained success. Not just a couple upsets to end a season like last year. Sustained success. Maybe that can happen. And they can return to SEC relevance, but it ain't going to be this year. Now, on the other hand, the Miami Hurricanes, they're still the best team in America as I sit here right now. Even on a day when the offense doesn't quite click together, their defense can just bury people. We'll know the answer for sure in 2 weeks when they play Florida State. But right now, this is the best team in the ACC, and this is the best Miami team it has had since it became an ACC team in 2004. All that being said, we're going to move on now to who changed it and who confirmed it first. Who changed this big old brain up here? Ole Miss is really good. I'm unfamiliar. I was sorry. I doubted you. I'm not a fan of Lane Kiffin personally. I said you weren't going to be very good this year. Fake news. You guys are good. Just like Tennessee proved to me last week, you guys have done so this week. Ole Miss is really good. And in my mind, a conversation has to be had about the quarterback position. Ferris State transfer Trinidad Chambliss, dope name, was sensational against a solid Tulane team. That's a solid team that buried granted not a good Northwestern team, but buried a Big Ten opponent at home. Ole Miss sunned them. They look really good, and they might have a quarterback conversation on their hands. Memphis is the best group of 5 team in the country. I know USF still technically has a better resume. North Texas won't go away quietly. And I also know that Arkansas is not the beacon of quality for an SEC team. But the drive to come back from down 18 late in the second quarter to knock off an SEC opponent really impressed me. On that note, confirmed. There is not a single top 25 quality group of 5 team. One of them will make the playoffs, but none of them are among the 25 best teams in America. Last year, I do really think Boise State was a borderline top 25 team. I would say Boise State was about as good as Illinois or South Carolina, who were right around 15-16. I think that's about fair for what Boise State was last year. But this year, Memphis, South Florida, Navy, UNLV, whoever you want, none of these teams are as good as the rest of the teams that'll be in the playoff with them. And whoever does get this group of 5 bid at the end of the year, it might get ugly in the first round of the playoffs. Whoever that 5 seed is, you might be kissing your lucky stars this year. The last thing changed. Something that changed my mind, I'm going to finally say it. This is a little petty. I'm kind of over Pat McAfee on College Game Day. Kind of done with it. Kind of sick of it. He's entertaining. He's a lot of fun. He makes it slightly more enjoyable. I think the rest of them would do that without, Desmond and Kirk are plenty enjoyable. Reese is plenty enjoyable. Saban's a stick in the mud, but who cares? Pat, I know you went to West Virginia. I know you have pride in your school. But the Mountaineers are maybe the worst team in the Big 12, and I'm sick of you mentioning them during this 3-hour show. West Virginia has done nothing since Geno Smith to warrant being mentioned on College Game Day. Please stop shoehorning them into a conversation whenever the Big 12 comes up. The Big 12 is mentioned rarely as it is on College Game Day. So when you're asked a question, who is the legitimate contender or a favorite for the Big 12, please don't spit out your dog crap alma mater. Okay? Stop. You lost to Ohio at home. You just got blown out by Kansas. Please never bring up that Morgantown, I almost said really redneck, that couch-burning Morgantown dumpster fire of a team until Rich Rod can turn it around in 3 years. There's really nothing that much to change my mind. I had to come up with a second thing, and McAfee just had to go in the chop. My top 10. As I said, I'm going to do my first official top 25 on Thursday when I preview Week 5. There's some matchups that got me going. Oregon, Penn State. Going to the Happy Family. The top 10 before I get into it. The 2 teams that have fallen out of the top 10 to no fault of their own. Notre Dame and Tennessee have both fallen out of my top 10. They both look solid. They're right on the outside. Like they didn't drop. There's 11 and 12. But the 2 teams that are new to this needed to get in. And speaking of that, number 10, the Texas Tech Red Raiders. This team looked really good. Utah is one of the most underrated places to win. The Utes are always a good team. The Utes are still a good team. Texas Tech made them look not good. They made, to paraphrase Derek Zoolander, they made a good team look not good. They deserve to be, they're one of the 10 best teams in the country right now. 9, Penn State. I'm not going to talk about them because I have nothing to say positive about this program, and they've No. 8, Oklahoma. They won. They needed to win. They didn't impress me, and they're going to get jumped by somebody, which they are. 7, Indiana. This team looks good. Indiana looks really good. They look better than they did last year, and they were a playoff team last year. Again, as we talked about earlier, their schedule's a little harder, though, so they're not a shoo-in for the playoffs. 6, Texas A&M. 5, Georgia. I flipped them from last week just because they're still tied, so let's just shuffle them. They're a tie for 5. Georgia and Texas A&M, tie for 5. 4, Oregon. Again, not talking about them because that'll happen a lot on Thursday, as is. Ohio State, 3. They've beaten Texas. Nothing else has happened this year. 2, LSU. Same as Ohio State. 1, Miami. They looked really good. They took care of business. Knocked down Florida. Really good team. And they're the best team in the country as I sit here right now. That's going to do it for me. I'm going to be back, as I mentioned, Thursday with more previewing Week 5 as we get going, giving you my debut of my top 25 poll. I haven't done a top 25 yet. Haven't done one because I haven't known. We need to see teams play 4 games before I can tell you who's good and not. Now I can. I'll be back later this week. Thanks for tuning in. Make sure to like, rate, review, subscribe. Anything you want to do. Just keep listening to Everything Collegiate on the Ben Shepherd Podcast Network. See you later in the week.